Well, it's about 2 weeks before the end. This is going to be my last video, probably before.
In the quiet town of North Bend, Washington, the Keller family lived what seemed to be an ordinary life. Lynette Keller, a loving wife and mother, spent her days crafting and sharing her passions on YouTube.
I know my husband spoils me. He hates seeing me in pain. So tonight he came home and he gave me another $20 because he knows I'm going to the doctor's tomorrow and he wants me to stop at Michael's and get some more stuff.
Their daughter, Kayleen, was just beginning her journey into adulthood.
So how do you feel, Kayleen?
No more high school, yay!
Feel different? No?
And then there was Peter Keller, the husband, the father, the provider.
At this point, I don't know what's going to happen. I may get caught right away. Basically, if I get caught, I'm just going to shoot myself.
To everyone who knew him, he was a quiet, reserved man. Perhaps a little distant, but nothing out of the ordinary. But behind the closed doors of their home, something terrifying was unfolding.
So, I could basically be dead in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. I don't know. It's all up to chance at this point. So, I don't think anyone knows where I'm at. But if they put it together, who knows? At this point, I have to take that chance. So, it's just going to be a point of, go as far as I can. I do have my escape, and that's death. And I'm okay with that.
For nearly a decade, Peter Keller had been leading a double life. He wasn't just a man with a survivalist hobby, he was a man with a plan, a dark, twisted plan. Deep in the forests of the Pacific Northwest, hidden among the towering trees, Peter had been building something, a secret underground bunker. He had spent years hauling supplies, digging into the mountainside, preparing for the day he would disappear from society forever. But he wasn't planning on going alone. What happened next would shock even the most hardened detectives. It was a crime so calculated, so cold, that even the investigators who had seen it all were left disturbed.
I'm not doing too good today. Sorry, I'm just in a lot of pain. Today's just a horrible, horrible day.
The truth about Peter Keller would only be revealed after his final, irreversible act. A horrifying decision that left a mother and daughter dead, a home in flames, and a manhunt that would end in one of the most unsettling discoveries the state had ever seen. What could drive a man to destroy everything he had built? What was he truly running from? And what sinister thoughts lurked behind Peter Keller's calm and quiet demeanor? Peter Keller wasn't always a monster. He was once just another man trying to navigate the struggles of life. A high school sweetheart romance led to marriage with Lynette, and together they raised their daughter, Kayleen.
Sorry, my video's probably not good. I have my PJs on, so I'm trying not to go down too far. My name is Lynette, but I like Lynn. And I've been married, in April, I'll be married for 20 years. I have a daughter who's going to be 19 pretty soon. She's in college. But yeah, that's me. I'm just crafting. I don't work. I can't work right now because of the injury. So yeah, I'm just at home. All right, I better go because I'm just rambling. But yeah, I hope you guys are having a great week. Okay, bye.
They lived a modest life in North Bend, Washington, a small town on the outskirts of Seattle, surrounded by lush forests and towering mountains. It was a place of peace, a place where families built their futures. But while Lynette and Kayleen embraced this life, Peter was quietly rejecting it. Peter had an obsession, one that started small but grew into something uncontrollable.
I'm getting to the point where just trying to live and pay bills and live as a civilian and go to work, that just freaks me out. It's actually more comfortable for me to think about living out here, robbing banks, pharmacies, just taking what I want for as long as I can. At least it'll be exciting. It won't be boring. And I don't have to worry about Lynette or Kayleen. And everything will be taken care of. It'll just be me. So.
He wasn't just interested in survivalism. He was consumed by it. He spent his free time hiking deep into the woods, testing his limits and preparing for what he believed was an inevitable collapse of society.
Well, before, a while ago, I used to sit here and think, this whole thing is just crazy at times, and then I'd think about it and then it would make sense, and it's like, okay, this is what I gotta do. Just the more I've thought about it, the more I understand it. I don't really feel bad about it. It's just the way it is. Certain things happen and cause this to happen. So, just kind of accepted it and just rolling with it.
Over time, his fascination turned into something more extreme. He didn't just want to survive, he wanted to disappear. He wanted freedom from responsibility, from bills, from the mundane routine of daily life. And more importantly, he wanted that freedom alone.
My husband got me this table, that table over there, and then this big shelf. I just love this stuff. He got me all that furniture, and then he put my shelves up for me. Such a great husband.
Since 2004, Peter had been secretly working on a hidden bunker deep in the Cascade Mountains. He had spent nearly a decade carrying supplies, digging into the earth, fortifying walls, and making sure that when the time came, he could vanish without a trace. But there was one thing standing in his way: his family.
I just feel like I'm getting knocked back financially. My wife is just gonna suck all the money out that I have.
Peter began to see Lynette and Kayleen not as loved ones, but as obstacles. He resented Lynette for not being able to work due to a past injury, believing she was dragging him down financially.
Can you take a picture of me and sell me on eBay?
He saw Kayleen as another tether, another tie to a life he no longer wanted. The bunker was his escape plan, but he couldn't just leave. He had to erase all traces of his past, and so he made a decision. A horrifying, calculated decision. April 22nd, 2012, was an ordinary day in the Keller household, or at least it appeared to be. Lynette Keller spent time working on her crafting projects, even posting what would unknowingly become her final YouTube video.
So I started YouTube a few months ago. I've been, told about it for quite a bit, but I just never looked into it. And so I figured, okay, might as well, because, I'm not really into the Facebook thing anymore. And I don't really like playing the computer games no more. So I wanted to just focus on my crafts and, do stuff. I found the YouTube and I started getting subbies. I was really excited, like when I first got my subby, Michelle.
Kayleen, her 18-year-old daughter, moved through the house with no awareness of the horror that would soon unfold. As the evening set in, the mother and daughter prepared for bed, unaware that Peter Keller had already made up his mind. While they slept peacefully in their rooms, Peter was wide awake. His mind was sharp, his hands steady. He had spent years planning this moment, ensuring that nothing would go wrong. He retrieved his handgun, fitted it with a silencer he had prepared for this exact purpose, and moved toward their bedroom with a chilling purpose. First, he approached his wife. In the dim glow of the hallway, he stood over her, watching as she breathed softly in her sleep. There was no hesitation. He raised the gun and pulled the trigger. A muffled pop, a slight jerk of her body, and it was over.
It's the point in which I killed my wife and my daughter in their sleep. They won't know it. I'm hoping that I can just do it real clean. Nobody wakes up. Got a silencer. And that's my goal. Nobody's going to suffer. Nobody's even going to know about it.
Lynette never knew what happened. She never had a chance to wake up. The bullet had done its job. Peter then turned toward Kayleen's room. His daughter, the child he had raised, lay curled up under her blankets. Just hours earlier, she had likely spoken to him, perhaps even said goodnight. But to Peter, she was nothing more than another obstacle. He stepped forward, lined up the shot, and fired. One precise bullet to the head, and she was gone. The house fell silent once more, save for Peter's controlled breathing. He had done it. He had erased his past. But his work wasn't finished. He needed to make sure that by the time anyone found the bodies, there would be nothing left to investigate. Moving quickly, he retrieved the gasoline cans he had prepared earlier. One by one, he positioned them throughout the house, near the furniture, under the staircase, along the walls. Every drop of gasoline served a purpose, ensuring that the fire would consume everything. He wasn't just destroying evidence. He was wiping out the very existence of the life he was leaving behind. Striking a match, Peter ignited his family home. Flames spread rapidly, licking at the walls, engulfing furniture, reducing memories and possessions to ashes. The fire roared to life, growing more intense with each passing second, illuminating the dark night in a hellish glow. By the time he stepped outside, the inferno was fully underway. Peter didn't look back. He knew that soon, neighbors would see the flames. They would call the fire department. Authorities would arrive, and the house would be gone. But he wouldn't be there to answer their questions. He was already slipping into the dense forest, disappearing into the wilderness, heading toward the secret bunker he had spent years building.
At this point, I don't know what's going to happen. I may get caught right away. Basically, if I get caught, I'm just going to shoot myself. So, I mean, I could basically be dead in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. I don't know. It's all up to chance at this point. So, I don't think anyone knows where I'm at. But if they put it together, who knows? At this point, I have to take that chance. So, it's just going to be a point of, go as far as I can. I do have my escape, and that's death. And I'm okay with that. So,
by the time emergency responders arrived, the Keller home was beyond saving. The fire raged, swallowing every trace of the life that once thrived within those walls. But as investigators sifted through the wreckage, they uncovered something far worse than they had expected. Evidence of something far more sinister than an accidental fire. When emergency responders arrived at the Keller home, they were met with an inferno. Flames devoured the structure, thick black smoke billowing into the night sky. Firefighters worked tirelessly to contain the blaze, but by the time the fire was extinguished, the house was nothing more than a smoldering ruin. What they assumed was a tragic accident, a fire that had taken the lives of a mother and daughter, soon turned into something far more sinister. As investigators combed through the wreckage, the first sign that something was wrong came from the bodies themselves. Lynette and Kayleen's remains weren't charred beyond recognition, as one would expect in a fatal house fire. Their bodies, though exposed to the flames, told a different story, one that the fire was never meant to hide. A medical examiner soon confirmed the horrifying truth. Neither woman had died from smoke inhalation or burns. Both had been shot in the head. This revelation changed everything. What was initially thought to be an accidental fire was now a double homicide. Investigators quickly shifted their focus. If Lynette and Kayleen had been murdered before the fire started, then someone had deliberately set the blaze to cover their tracks. But who? And where were they now?
this winter's been, just to show just how brutal it was. Well, we had a big ice storm. This is one of the trees that's fallen down over the trail. Kind of another one over there. Just a lot of damage. Branches down everywhere. Makes it a little more difficult to get through, but I don't want to move it. I'd like to keep it as hard to get through here so nobody will come out here. This winter's been pretty brutal. It's been really slowing me down. I was hoping to be done about a month ago, but it's just constantly snowed, and last month has just been really, really wet and rainy, and it's just couldn't do anything for a long time. But I'm hoping now that the weather is going to change. It looks like it's getting better. It's starting to switch over. Can finally get everything up here and finish this off. Finally do what I have to do and get it out of the way. Well, it's about 2 weeks before I finally drop out of society, and start this project.
Suspicion immediately fell on the one person missing from the scene, Peter Keller. His absence raised alarms, and when officers attempted to locate him, they discovered his car had been abandoned in downtown North Bend. He was nowhere to be found.
Well, it's about 2 weeks before the end. This is going to be my last video, probably before till after that. That's terrible.
A deeper look into the family's history provided more disturbing clues. When detectives interviewed family members and friends, they uncovered an unsettling portrait of Peter Keller. He was a man obsessed with survivalism, someone who had spent years preparing for a life off the grid. He had amassed an arsenal of weapons, stockpiled supplies, and often spoke about one day disappearing from society entirely. He was known to take long trips into the wilderness, telling his wife and daughter he was hiking, though in reality, he had been working on something far more elaborate. Then came the breakthrough. As investigators continued searching through the remains of the home, they stumbled upon something unexpected: documents, maps, and even video recordings detailing what appeared to be a hidden bunker. It was meticulously planned, built into the remote wilderness, designed as a self-sustaining shelter. From the blueprints and notes left behind, it became clear. Peter Keller had been planning this for years. Detectives pieced together his chilling plan. He had executed his wife and daughter, set fire to their home, and disappeared into the wilderness, retreating to a bunker no one was supposed to find. But thanks to the records he had left behind, authorities now had a lead. Using topographical maps and satellite imagery, search teams began narrowing down potential locations in the Cascade Mountains. The hunt for Peter Keller had begun, and law enforcement knew they were not just tracking a fugitive, they were tracking a man who had spent years preparing for this exact scenario. The question was, would they find him before he disappeared forever? The hunt for Peter Keller was unlike any other manhunt local law enforcement had faced. This wasn't a fugitive on the run. This was a man who had spent nearly a decade preparing to vanish. He had studied the terrain, mapped out escape routes, and built a fortress in the wild. Tracking him down wouldn't be easy, but investigators had an advantage. Keller had unknowingly left behind the key to his own capture. Using the maps and notes found in the remains of the Keller home, authorities zeroed in on a remote area of the Cascade Mountains. With the aid of aerial surveillance and search teams, they combed through the dense, unforgiving terrain. It wasn't long before they spotted something unusual, a faint plume of smoke rising from deep within the forest. This was it. On April 27, 2012, 5 days after the murders, SWAT teams surrounded the heavily camouflaged bunker.
Tonight, we go inside the mountainside bunker of an accused killer. Police say Peter Keller worked on this elaborate hideout for years. They believe he went there to hide after murdering his wife and daughter in their North Bend home. Keller's body was found Saturday inside that bunker.
One investigator called it something out of a survivalist handbook, an underground fortified bunker, totally camouflaged in a heavily wooded area on a mountainside in the middle of nowhere.
You can see the rough-hewn logs, the timbers that were milled here on the site and pulleyed across this ravine that's in the background. It's incredibly well reinforced.
Hidden among trees and brush, the underground structure was nearly impossible to detect with the naked eye. It was reinforced with logs, dug deep into the mountainside, and had multiple escape routes. The amount of effort that had gone into building it was staggering. Authorities knew they were dealing with a heavily armed man who had nothing to lose. They prepared for the worst. Armed officers took their positions, snipers were placed in key vantage points, and a perimeter was established. Then the standoff began. For nearly 22 hours, police attempted to coax Keller out. They used loudspeakers calling his name and urging him to surrender. They fired tear gas into the bunker, hoping to force him out, but there was no response. only an eerie silence from within. Keller had spent years making sure no one could reach him, and now his paranoia had become his prison.
This is the end of the day. I'm getting wrapped up, getting ready to leave. I don't know if you can see me, but it's kind of one last look at everything.
On April 28th, authorities finally made their move. After ensuring there were no booby traps, SWAT teams carefully breached the bunker's entrance. What they found inside was a chilling sight: rifles, handguns, ammunition, propane tanks, canned food, and survival gear, all neatly organized. Keller had been prepared to live here for months, maybe even years, but he would never get the chance. At the back of the bunker, lying in a pool of blood, was Peter Keller. He had taken his own life with a gunshot to the head. He had planned for every possible scenario, except one where he would have to face the consequences of his crimes. Peter Keller spent years building an escape from society, constructing a hidden fortress where he could live out his survivalist fantasies. But in the end, he lasted only 5 days before his world came crashing down. His life's work, the bunker, the weapons, the stockpiled supplies, had been for nothing. His elaborate plan to disappear had collapsed under the weight of his own paranoia. Despite years of preparation, his greatest mistake was underestimating the ability of investigators to track him down. He had wanted to be untouchable, yet he left behind everything they needed to find him. But more than the failure of his plan, the true tragedy of Peter Keller's story lies in the people he destroyed. Lynette Keller was a devoted wife and mother who had built a life around love and creativity. Kayleen Keller was a bright, promising young woman with her entire future ahead of her. Both were robbed of their lives in an act of cold-blooded selfishness. For what? A bunker? A dream of living alone in the woods? A paranoid escape from a world he simply refused to be part of? In the end, Peter Keller didn't just take the lives of his wife and daughter, he destroyed himself. His story serves as a chilling reminder of how obsession, resentment, and unchecked paranoia can turn a man into a monster.
He's a great guy. He stuck around with me. Some guys are kind of leave when you get that, it's part of your vows. But anyways, I don't want to get on to that.
I know, my husband spoils me. He hates seeing me in pain. So tonight he came home and he gave me another $20 because he knows I'm going to the doctor's tomorrow and he wants me to stop at Michael's and get some more stuff.
And in his final moments, locked away in his self-made tomb, Peter Keller learned the cruelest irony of all. He had spent years running from the world, only to die alone, just as he had always feared. The case of Peter Keller leaves us with unsettling questions. How does someone go from being a husband and father to a cold-blooded killer? At what point does survivalism cross the line from preparedness into dangerous paranoia? And perhaps the most haunting question of all, if he hadn't been caught so quickly, would he have gone on to kill again? One thing is certain, Peter Keller didn't escape society. He didn't outsmart the system. He didn't start a new life in the wild. Instead, his name will forever be remembered not as a man who survived, but as a man who destroyed. If you found this case as chilling as we did, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think drove Peter Keller to commit such a horrific act? Do you believe he could have been stopped before it was too late? And if you enjoy deep dives into true crime and disturbing real-life stories, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Stay safe out there.